Eric Trump has just dropped a bombshell about zero point 0.1 Bitcoin at the Bitcoin conference. I know it's going to sound a little bit interesting and a little bit strange that the president's son is now talking about a fraction of a Bitcoin, but you're going to have to hear the clip and hear exactly what the Trump's son said about this amount of Bitcoin.
0.1 Bitcoin is going to be worth an absolute fortune. And, look at the OTC.
We are going to look at the OTC desks, and we are going to be looking at the other reasons for why Eric Trump is so bullish on 0.1 Bitcoin, because today I want to be having a look at a Pareto's principle distribution to show you how many people can own 0.1 Bitcoin. And like we did last week, I'm also going to show you my favorite Bitcoin retirement calculator that is going to show us exactly how much 0.1 Bitcoin could be worth and when you could retire on that amount of Bitcoin. So before we get to the retirement calculator, I want to jump on over and have a little bit of a peep at this Pareto's principle distribution. And I want to make the case for why less people will be able to own 0.1 Bitcoin that you might expect. So again, this is a table that I love. I like to remind you guys about this table at least once every couple of months, because we can see this is looking at a Pareto's principle wealth distribution on a Bitcoin standard. And what it's doing is you can see the number right up here in the top left-hand corner. It is saying, all right, if there's 16 million Bitcoin actually available for sale, how many people could own each amount of Bitcoin? So it's looking at how many people can own 1,000 coins, 100 coins, one whole coin, and we're more interested in 0.1 Bitcoin for today's little simulation. And again, a lot of people will say, hang on a minute, there's 21 million Bitcoin. Why are we looking at a table that assumes there's only 16 million Bitcoin available for sale? Let's not forget at least 4 to 5 million coins are lost. And then we have Satoshi's million coins. And then we also have the fact that at least 10 million coins haven't moved in the past 3 years. Now, again, we're going to get a little bit more bullish with our estimations here in a moment. But let's start with the conservative estimation. And again, I'd like to remind you guys, multiple things in the world follow a Pareto's principle distribution. Wealth inequality or wealth distribution follows a Pareto's principle. It typically shows that 20% of people hold 80% of the wealth, or 20% of people typically bring you 80% of the results in a business. This is common and this is seen in lots of different things all over the world. So let's start looking at what would happen if a wealth distribution was to be put onto a Bitcoin standard. We can see if there's 16 million Bitcoin available for sale, the little part about this table that I'm most interested in is this line here. To be considered upper middle class, you can actually see that you need, 0.008 Bitcoin, but I'm more interested in this number just above it. So to be a part of the new millionaire class on a Bitcoin standard, if you assume there's 16 million coins available for sale, you can see that you only need 0.06 Bitcoin to be a part of this millionaire class. So that is 6% of a Bitcoin. And that is very close to the number that Eric Trump mentioned at the Bitcoin conference in that clip that we're about to play you the rest of in a moment. So here we can see only 80 million people will be able to own 6% of a Bitcoin. Again, how many millionaires are there in the world today? There's about 50 to 60 million millionaires, and only 80 million people will be able to own 6% of a Bitcoin if we transition to a Bitcoin standard and if wealth follows a Pareto's principle distribution on a Bitcoin standard, which I think it will. It already is slowly beginning to show signs of a Pareto's principle distribution. Now, again, what happens if there's even less than 16 million Bitcoin available for sale on a Bitcoin standard? I want to run that simulation in a moment. But first, I want to jump on over to the little retirement calculator that I always like to show you guys. So let's jump on over here and let's have a look at when you could retire on 0.1 Bitcoin. So this is the number that Eric Trump specifically mentioned. Now, in another live stream the other day, we showed you how Bitcoin's CAGR over the past 5 years has been 78%. So on our little calculator, we're going to assume our Bitcoin stack size is 0.1 Bitcoin. We're going to assume we want to retire with 100,000 So that's our annual income. Each year, we would be selling $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. We're going to assume the money supply expands by 12%, and we're going to assume Bitcoin appreciates by 78%. Now, let's look at the numbers that we are given. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the numbers we're about to look at seem a little bit crazy. They might even be slightly too bullish for some people to handle, but you can see very clearly you will be able to retire by 2031 if we make these, what I think are very simple and very conservative assumptions. Your personal moon date is 2031. Your original 0.1 Bitcoin would be worth $759,000 in 2031. And you can see each day you'd be selling $604 worth of Bitcoin. Now, that is my favorite little retirement calculator. This is called When Moon. Now, let's jump back on over to this Pareto's principal distribution. Now, this is the one that we just looked at. Now, how about we look at one that is slightly more bullish? This one is something that I think is more directionally correct. This Pareto's principal distribution says, hang on a minute, what happens if there's only 4 million Bitcoin available for sale? Now, I think this is far more accurate, and I think this is actually kind of related to the first part of that clip with Eric Trump I'm going to play you guys in a moment. Now, again, let's have a look at how much 0.1 Bitcoin could be worth, or how many people could get their hands on 0.1 Bitcoin if we assume only 4 million Bitcoin are available for sale. Now, again, to those people who think that sounds crazy and it's too bullish, stick around so we can actually listen to the first part of that Eric Trump clip, because I think he says some really interesting things that's worth including into our analysis. But let's take a little bit of a peep at this one. So you can see numbers have kind of changed all of a sudden. Now, instead of needing 6% of a Bitcoin to be in this new millionaire class where 80 million people could hold this amount of Bitcoin, now, you only need 1% of a Bitcoin. So you can see this number here. Let's zoom in on it. Let's have a little bit of a peep. This is the table. This is the column. Sorry, this is the row that we're interested in. The millionaire and companies row. You can see that's the number. 80 million total entities can hold this amount of Bitcoin. We scroll all the way over. Bitcoin entity, 0.015. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. 80 million people will be able to hold 1.5% of a Bitcoin. Now, Eric Trump is talking about 0.1 Bitcoins. That's 7 times that figure. This is going to nearly put us into the multi-millionaire or large corporation category. That's pretty impressive when you think about it. That's a lot of Bitcoin. I mean, it's putting you in a very rare group of people, to be a part of the multi-millionaire or large corporate category. You can see there's only going to be 65,000 of these people. And you can see that you need 2.5 Bitcoin to be a part of this group. Again, that's a lot of money today. That's more than $250,000 today. Or actually, people are telling me that the price of Bitcoin is crashing. Is that true? Has the Bitcoin conference once again cursed the price of Bitcoin? Let's take a little bit of a peep at where we are, the price of Bitcoin. Let's jump on over to some of our favorite charts here to see where we are with the price of Bitcoin. People are telling me we're dumping. What are we at? Oh, my charts are loading. Now, before my charts load, to answer some questions, my surname is somewhat Serbian. Again, it's pronounced Mikic. So my grandfather was from Yugoslavia. So maybe that's where the anti-communist vibes from me come from. Obviously, I just came to those conclusions about the world on my own. But let's take a little bit of a peep at the Bitcoin price. $106,000. Guys, where is this dump that everybody is talking about? Is this the dump everybody is afraid of right now? Let's zoom out a bit. Put things into perspective. Where is the dump, sir? Okay, so Bitcoin's $106,000. I think it's very healthy right now. And I think right now, as we just showed you by that Pareto's principal distribution, you're going to need $250,000 to put you in the new class of multi-millionaires or large corporations. 2.5 Bitcoin. Not a ton. It's really not that much Bitcoin. It's really It's affordable. That's what I am going to say. I think it is incredibly affordable to accumulate that amount of Bitcoin. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Bitcoin and they're under the impression that you need so much more Bitcoin to retire, because I think a lot of people, I think there's a lot of, let's just say there's a lot of people in the space who are down on their luck and they wish that they bought Bitcoin earlier. So they are saying that you need a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin to retire. But when we run the numbers like we just did, I don't think that's true. I think you can retire much sooner than most people think. If you have 0.6 Bitcoin, Florian, I think you are certainly in a very rare class of person. Again, let's jump on over to our calculator. If you assume 16 million Bitcoin are available for sale, let's zoom in on this chart. Where does 0.6 Bitcoin put you? Put you somewhere between the class of millionaires and multi-millionaires. So somewhere between 80 million people and 65,000 people will be able to own that amount of Bitcoin. If I had to guess, I'd put it somewhere around the realm of 10 million people. Again, in a world of 8 billion people, that would put you in a 1 in a 10,000 kind of person. 1 in 10,000 people would be able to own that amount of Bitcoin. Look at you guys. You're throwing numbers at me now. Before I show you all the numbers, we might come back to this Pareto's principle distribution here in a moment. Let's play you the rest of that clip from Eric Trump, because he has some reasoning for why he believes 0.1 Bitcoin could be worth so much. So let's bring back this video. Let's mute it so we don't blow everybody's eardrums. And let's play it from the beginning. Has some really interesting reasoning for why he believes this amount of Bitcoin could be so life-changing.
Everybody wants Bitcoin. Everybody is buying Bitcoin. If you go back 12 months, there were probably less than 100 companies that were treasuring Bitcoin that really had any. And now every single day, it's another sovereign wealth fund. Look what GameStop just did. Look what Truth Social did. Every single day, people are allocating billions and billions of dollars to it. You know, 0.1 Bitcoin is going to be worth an absolute fortune. And, you know, look at the...
I would love for you guys to let me know in the chat what you think an absolute fortune means, but I think it's retirement money. I've been banging this drum for a very long time. I think 0.1 Bitcoin could be generational wealth. Again, I don't just think it. I've showed you guys the maths and the numbers of why 0.1 Bitcoin will be generational wealth. If you're just joining the stream, I'd encourage you to rewind to the beginning of the stream and check out where we did walk through the maths and the numbers of why 0.1 Bitcoin could be revolutionary and could be life-changing. Again, I do just think it's inevitable. Bitcoin is so rare. Bitcoin is so scarce. Nobody understands charts like the one I'm going to find for you guys here in a moment that really just highlights, hey, there really is only 5.5% of the Bitcoin supply left to be mined. People don't get this. People don't understand this. Everybody can see that the number of Bitcoin on exchanges is dropping like a rock. Again, my favorite chart I always remind you of, so I'm not going to rehash it for an hour today. This is a chart, coins on exchanges. 500,000 coins have left the exchanges in the past 5 months. We are witnessing a supply crisis. I'm calling a supply suffocation for the ages. And I think most people are bearish on Bitcoin because they don't understand this chart. There's only 1.2 million Bitcoin left to be mined today in 2025. That means that 1.2 million coins is going to be mined over the next 115 years. I know that's crazy. I know that's hard to wrap your head around. Don't get me wrong. I get it. But we have 115 years left to be fighting over the final 1.2 million Bitcoin. I don't know about you guys, but I'm beginning to get a little bit scared of the Bitcoin supply crisis that is going on right now. I think it's accelerating, and I think you're going to need less Bitcoin than most people think. To Michael's comment in the chat, yes, $1 is going to be worth 1 sat. I couldn't agree more. I think it's going to happen. 0.4 Bitcoin retirement by 2035. I agree. Let's actually run the numbers for Richard Jones here in a moment. Before we get there, again, if you're bullish today, again, I would encourage you, if you don't hold your own Bitcoin in your own custody, but you're watching bullish videos like this, I would encourage you to stop this stream. Turn off this live stream of a crazy kid with a wild haircut and go and custody your Bitcoin Again, if you're bullish and you want to buy more Bitcoin, I always encourage you guys to check out the Bitcoin Well. I think they're the best Bitcoin exchange in the space. No, I don't think they are the best Bitcoin exchange in the space. If you do want to go buy some Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Well, this is what you're going to see once you sign up. And you can see in the very top right-hand corner of the screen, you get tokens. You get these Bitcoin Well points for every time you buy Bitcoin. And when you have 500 points, I don't have the points because I've been giving away all my free Bitcoin to you guys during these live streams, but you can actually play the Bitcoin Wishing Well and you go into the draw to win 1% of a Bitcoin. Again, that's nearly the amount that Eric Trump is telling you is going to be life-changing. It's going to be worth a ridiculous amount of money. So again, if you are looking to buy more Bitcoin, go check out the Bitcoin Well. If you want to store your Bitcoin correctly, I also always tell you guys to check out Stampseed. Again, your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words. It's not safe on paper. Please don't be one of those guys who has their Bitcoin backed up on paper. Go and get some titanium plates from Stampseed and back up your Bitcoin the way it should be backed up. Again, you guys can get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with that promo code Luke15. It's going to be linked down below. Now let's run some maths and run some numbers for you guys. So whose calculation do you want me to have a look at first? Let's look at Richard and this 0.4 calculation. Let's jump back on over to our Bitcoin retirement calculator. Let me zoom in, minimize my big mug. Let's have a little bit of a peep. 0.4 Bitcoin, let's assume you want to be selling $100,000 worth of Bitcoin each year. I think that's enough to retire in most countries around the world. You can retire by 2028. Bitcoin stack will be worth $537,000 at that stage. As you can see, your first daily sell will be 400 big ones. 428, oof, $8 away from my favorite number. So again, this is the maths that most people just are not aware of. I think you can retire so much quicker than most people think. Why is Luke streaming live competing with the conference? Terrible idea. Tell me it's a bad idea. Who is at Vegas right now? I'd be interested how many of the 312 of you guys are at Vegas right now at the conference. I'm actually in Europe preparing for a different conference. If you guys are going to what I think is going to be the biggest conference in Europe, highly encourage you guys to check out BTC Prague. And actually, if you're going to BTC Prague, I have a little bit of a present for you guys. You can actually use a promo code LukeM10 and you get 10% off your tickets for that Prague conference. Again, all the big names are going to be there. Michael Saylor is going to be there. Adam Back's going to be there. Seyfedina Moose is going to be there. Jack Marlers is going to be there. My mentor, Mark Moss, is going to be there. Again, all the big names are speaking, and even some little names. This little crazy kid with a wild haircut will be dropping some, hopefully not profanities, up on stage in Prague. Now, I'll keep it clean. I'll keep it clean for my Czech Republic friends. So again, if you're at the BTC Prague conference, you want to come say g'day or tell me to throw a shrimp on the barbie, you'd be surprised how many people at the conference, as soon as I start talking, they just say, throw a shrimp on the barbie, mate. Anyway, if you want to come make fun of my Australian accent in person, come to the BTC Prague conference. I think it's going to be a blast. And again, you can get 10% off your tickets with that promo code LukeM10. Like you, Sinister, I also want to be a Bitcoin trillionaire. And again, I think when we do start to grasp just how scarce Bitcoin is, I don't know about being a trillionaire, but I think the everyday person can certainly be far more wealth on a Bitcoin standard than we have the opportunity to be on a fiat standard. I think that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. The beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it is rare, it is scarce, and once you claim your very scarce space on the Bitcoin blockchain, you cannot be diluted. If you hold one Bitcoin, you will hold 1/21 millionth of the total supply forever. As simple as that. This is why I'm so bullish on Bitcoin. Again, we just briefly took a little bit of a peep at the Pareto's principal distribution that I showed you guys today. And we also just very briefly took a little bit of a peep at my favorite Bitcoin retirement calculator. I've actually done a deep dive on both of these videos prior. So if you do want to learn more about either one of them, I'm going to put a link to the Pareto's principal distribution video somewhere over there and the retirement calculator video somewhere around there. Thank you so much to the 312 of you guys tuning in between Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. I'll see you all in another live stream.